We're getting had a little bit of trouble with the audio issues with frequencies and such, but now we're good to go. So, welcome to Digital Diversity Day, this first event with all the different gaming organizations on campus. We also have a couple of other panels that are also going to be going on upstairs, and the pitch competition as well is happening right around this time as well. But I want to introduce my two different panelists over here. We have a lot of other awesome panelists and special guests here for the first time, this being our first event, D3. And I'd love for them to also introduce themselves to the audience.
Hi, I'm Esteban. I guess my background is that I am a UT alum, actually went to school here in Bilo, School of Communications for PR. And immediately after college, I started working with South by Southwest as a festival organizer, doing a variety of different things. Community management, marketing is my role, so I'm responsible for building or putting together panels and sessions, talks, workshops, mentor sessions, all that kind of stuff for our conference. And my fun fact would be that I'm also from Austin, so I have kind of a small town story. I grew up just behind St. Edwards, went up the road to UT. I work downtown for South by. My next step is to become mayor, so we'll see.
Hi, I'm Amy Brady. I started esports way early in the day, in the early 2000s. I founded a clan called PMS Clan. Through that, and it's a large women's organization. It's all inclusive, but of course a diversity group for women gamers. When we did our name, when we first decided it was going to be PMS Clan, we knew that it was going to be something that people giggled about or talked about or whatever, and there was a purpose behind that, and we wanted to do that. Something that is taken negatively and kind of settled on it. Plus, we wanted the 3 acronyms that they knew that they were dying by girls. So I'm not going to not own up to that. It's true. So from that, I marketing group and helped. On the face front, we were part of a group called Frag Dolls, and that was a traditional promotional marketing group. We were kind of the face of a lot of the games. On the back end, we were style, organizing and creating content, ideation around how we're going to promote the games, doing all of that, and then we always worked the events. And through those events, we did shootouts, those kind of things, owned people that were trying to play against us, kind of helped promoted the games that way, and from that I got into the event marketing. So I built TwitchCon. I worked at Twitch for a couple years, and I built the first 2 and got to do that, and that was an amazing opportunity. And now I'm at AA Labs, which is a local Austin company who does experiential marketing.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I kind of want to start off the panel by introducing what esports is actually to the audience, and maybe to people that only know of the video game industry and don't know much about what's happening on the esports side of things. And then also, what is diversity and inclusion to you? So, and how we're going to kind of add more questions to tie those things together.
I mean, diversity, of course, is talking and representing a marginalized group of people. So a population or people that are marginalized. And then when you look at that, how are we growing those groups and creating them to be inclusive and to create environments that grow all diversity groups and bring them together? And then what was the first part of that question? Esports, what?
Just kind of give a little bit of a general overview of what esports is and how it compares to video games, I guess, and just like regular video games.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can break it down because you have gamers, you have competitive gamers, and then you have esports. So what defines something like esports? And we're going to go back to traditional football, basketball, those kind of things. Who are the people making money? Who are the people that are up at the top, being in the public and showcasing their skill better than other people? So that's where you kind of get into the esports.
Yeah, I kind of came into this a little jaded on the topic of esports industry. I just feel as though there's a lot of weight behind something like industry, in that the esports as a scene, which is how I really see it, is still very Wild West. It stems from competitive gaming, and how do you make money off of that, right? How do you create a business off that? And right now what we're seeing are a lot of different fields of experimentation, whether it's in live events, digital broadcasts, monetization platforms. We were just talking about Unicorn. It's a fantasy esports platform. Again, as an industry, it's not entirely established, I feel like. There's definitely a lot of money being made by individuals and certain groups, but when I think of a scene instead as an industry, I think of career opportunities and not just a job that you can get. And that's not necessarily bad to me, and sorry if I'm kind of going off, but that it's not necessarily seen as an industry, because that just means that it's full of opportunity. It's for entrepreneurs, it's for people that really just have crazy ideas and want to do whatever comes to mind to them. If you feel like, wow, I love games, and I love competitive games, and I love esports, and this should be what's happening, then it's up to you to make that happen. And I think that's a cool thing about esports as compared to something like the video game industry, which is much more established, yet still really young as an entertainment sector. But it's a lot harder to shake up and change the entire video game industry than it is to change the entire esports scene and sector, if you will, I feel like. So.
Well, I think esports actually goes into the video game industry.
It's a segment.
It's a marketing tool for them. That's why the publishers are owning esports and owning their own content, and why it's so important is because they need to control their brand. So I think you're right in terms of it's not his own industry. The monetization is really hard. It's all sponsorships and some investment coming in, so it will be created. But right now, it's in the gaming industry.
Yeah, it's definitely a subsection, right? So. That's such a good point too. Also, the concept of how does this grow when it's owned, when the IPs are actually owned by companies. No one owns the game of baseball or basketball necessarily, and there's these major associations that control the primetime aspects of it, but no one owns basketball. You don't have to ask the NBA for permission to do something around basketball, but for an official event around, say, Overwatch, you need it to be sanctioned or approved by somebody like Blizzard or any of the major gaming companies, right? So, anyways, but on diversity, though, I definitely think that one of the points I was going to make about this Wild West analogy is that it's really up to anyone, and that means anyone, right? It's very colorblind, gender agnostic, I think, when it comes to who can really make an impact. I think that when you think of society at large or any of these tech industries, there's definitely ceilings and barriers to break. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more, many more opportunities for any individual to make a difference. So anyways, that's my take on diversity in the scene.
And just to kind of give a little bit more context to that, to esports for yourself individually, like how did you get into the scene, or how did you first learn about competitive video games in general? And I would love to hear Esteban also his experience inside of Longhorn Gaming or TESPA.
I'll let you go first. I think you have a much more interesting
So you have a direct question right now, so go for it.
So as I mentioned, I went to UT, and I actually, just to kind of take a minute on my background in UT, I came into UT wanting to be an artist. I wanted to be a concept artist for games. I'm a hyper-competitive person, one of the most competitive people I know. I was so competitive, in fact, that because my friend was such a good artist, I said I would go to school and become an artist so I could be better than them and get this really cool job in the game industry. And he went to a different school, and within a year I discovered that I actually don't want to be an artist anymore. So because my main source of competition wasn't there. After that, I knew I wanted to do something in games, and I knew that I was really passionate again about competitions and games and things of that nature. So when I had swapped over to becoming a PR major in that process, I learned about two organizations, one of which is still branded, the Electronic Games Association and Developers Association Society. Yeah, Electronic Games and Developers Society, right?
EGADS, yeah.
And then at the time it was TESPA, which was the Texas Esports Association. And I gravitated more towards TESPA, and at the time it just seemed like a really cool thing because it was spotlighting. They did an amateur event called the Texas Showdown on StarCraft, featuring Jeff in Control, rest in peace, and a few other StarCraft personalities, and that was really cool to me back in the day. Anybody play StarCraft? Anybody know about StarCraft? Okay, awesome, one person. Well, that was really big, way back before even League of Legends, and
definitely the biggest esport at the time.
It still is, and so I was just like, wow, this is so crazy. They're creating these this live event, and I want to be a part of it. Especially because I played a piece of trash game called Heroes of New Earth, and that was the competitor to League of Legends, rest in peace. That one though never took off. But I went up to them and I said this idea. I said, "Wow, there's this MOBA game called Here's a New Earth. You should show it. You should make a competition around it." And at the time, the individuals I was speaking to were the Rosens, who were the founders of TESPA. And they said, "Yeah, we'll think about it." And of course, that meant no, we're not going to do that. But I at least was able to get my foot in the door in the sense that I was wanting to get involved in producing these live events. And through this like ragtag group of students who just wanted to really just have a party where they got to invite these celebrities in gaming out, and the excuse for those celebrities in gaming to come out was because of the competition. We just kept throwing these events. It became Lone Star Clash, Lone Star Clash 2, Lone Star Clash 3, and it was this really incredible experience where after everything was said and done, the Rosens graduated, and everybody graduated at the time, but they went on to take the brand and integrate it into Blizzard. Blizzard acquired it, and it's now known as the Esports Association, which is what Longhorn Gaming is. I won't go into all the details as to why it is a Longhorn Gaming originally as opposed to why isn't it still TESPA. I think we just kind of overstepped our boundaries in some ways when using that club name.
Yeah, also student organizations on campus can't be affiliated with the business.
And with the company, yeah. So it worked out in the end, but the brand was technically banned before they were acquired by Blizzard. So anyways, I just kind of, as I mentioned earlier with my original point, was that, all I did was like a, terrible game and said that, we should do something around this terrible game, in which nothing happened about that, but I did get involved in something new, and it was just us wanting to, again, throw a party where we could invite the coolest gamers, and, it took off. And I think that's a common story maybe around a lot of the things in esports and people doing stuff. They just think that it's cool, and they do it, and success. So anyways, that's my way of getting involved. But
a lot of it's timing and a lot of luck. It's funny that you bring up brand names, how they have to change. PMS used to be Psychotic Manslayers, and now
really?
We changed it once we started getting sponsorships a long time ago to Pandora's Mighty Soldiers.
Yeah.
All right, so my start in gaming, I played games all when I was young. I even bought them when I went to college. I bought my first console. It was console-based that I started. Bought my first console. I wouldn't have called myself like a gamer until I started playing online. And that was through Halo 1. So when Halo came out, it was the launch of Xbox Live was 2002. I actually started playing in 2001. There was a tunnel service, Games by Tunnel. Then it was Connect after that. But anyway, I started competing locally in terms of Texas region. It was all by ping, how fast, who you could play with. It was really hard. You had to have people. So based on that, there was the first Halo National Championships. So everyone was going and playing on that, and I went through 2 cities. So I advanced really far, and I would have advanced the next one, but these guys teamed up. It was all solo, and these friends were playing and teamed up on us. So it was bullshit. I'd call that cheating.
It really is.
That's cheating. They would have, in these days, they would have been out. But of course, in there, it wasn't. So from that, I started my clan, and we started competing. Probably the second or third MLG. Women by nature are social. So the moment we found another girl online, and that was during when Xbox Live actually launched, the moment we found another girl, it was like instant sisterhood. It's like my whole story around it, because it was just me and my twin sister were the founders, and she's the director of global event sales at Twitch. I was the director of events. So we're kind of yin-yang powerhouses, and that's why our clan was so big back in the day. But when it was, I think it was Unreal Championship or something, and it had voice proximities, meaning anytime you're near an enemy, you can hear someone talking. And I heard a girl's voice. And I'm like, Amber, there's a girl playing with us or against us. And she's like, no. I just remember that moment because it was the first time. And it was so rare. It was so cool. None of them, even when we were playing locally, there wasn't another female. So, and I just kept running up to her over and over, and she kept shooting me. And I'm like, hey, are you a girl? Hey, are you a girl? And she just kept killing me. So it took about 10 times till she finally stopped. And she's like, yeah, I'm a girl. Are you a girl? And then that's how our clan was born. She knew another girl, and then the 4 of us started. So it was all through harassment. That's why we bonded together. It wasn't just sisterhood. We had already been playing a while. There is, you guys know, toxicity and how the harassment goes. So that kind of drove us together as well as, again, it's like sorority, sisterhood. Any kind of diversity group, you have that. It's something that, they go through, you go through, it drives you together. Or it should. I mean, there's some lone wolf girls out there, I'm not going to lie. hopefully they come into the sisterhood. But anyway, so from that again, it was very shortly after that Ubisoft was putting together that Fragdoll team. So by pure luck, pure just like passion, we were playing at MLG, we were competing, and we were doing really well. We were advanced to the championship brackets every time. We were in the top 16 a couple of times. So we started that, and then from there, it just kind of just went everywhere, I guess.
And give a little bit of a background as to, or a comparison to exactly when you joined the scene or you were starting to learn about it to what it is now and what's happening in today's scene.
It was just starting. I mean, I went to like the CPLs and the WSBGs or whatever. I went to all them, but it was all new because you remember, I'm old. It was early 2000s, right? That's when my friend Jonathan Wendell, Fatality, they were all playing PC. It was such a small niche that it was just, we knew everyone, right? So it's just, we got lucky. We're women, we're social. We wanted to go play against those guys. We wanted to go in person and compete. And it just all happened where it wasn't like it was now. There wasn't millions. There isn't all these viewerships. There was no Twitch. There was no outside external promotion, right? I mean, we were starting. I got to do some cool stuff with like MTV, things like that. But it just wasn't the same, and it's not the same. It's getting bigger and better, they say, but that's not the case in my opinion, because back in our day, there were probably 12 female teams every competition, full female. So I still question like how it's evolved, and the only thing I can think of is population-based. It's just even more men. Women are there, but I don't know. It's just a whole different world.
I have a follow-up question for you as well. I think one thing I've noticed in what you've said so far, the first being the sisterhood and how there are sometimes lone wolves that kind of go against the grain. Secondly, how somebody like Jonathan Wendell is a friend of yours from back then. I'm sure you keep in touch with him.
He stayed at my house for a month. He got to be a Gears of War almost pro level on a console. He's friends with my husband too, and they play golf. But he wasn't my husband then. But he literally was psychotic.
And when we think about what has changed since way back then, I think about what has not changed. I think one of the things that doesn't change are those connections and the people you know, and how small this industry is. And I kind of want to get your opinion on.
No, you actually bring up one of the key reasons why we were so good. It wasn't that we were just like, we were strong competitors, strong female players, but we were amazing, and we placed millions of times. Like every time there was a placement, and also our team was the Fragdoll team was the first all-female team to take first, and that was CPL 2008, and that was on Ghost Recon. But you bring up the good point because it's something that I'm trying to build on is the programs and why we were so good. And the one connector that's missing, I played with the pros. You're only as good as the people you played with. I didn't scrub match. I didn't random matchmaking. I did anything. I played with the pros. So, and all of our teams did, and luckily we had those connections. And I think that's probably what's missing and why we don't, outside of the population, because I still feel like population's number one, the programs around how to make diversity players better, they're gated. So how do we lift the gates and give them the opportunities we did? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think a poetic thing to say is that, connections last a long time, and the people you bond with and the people you try and make things with are the people who stick with you after all this time, right? And so that brings about innovation, diversity, change, and the ability to do things. So the original question, can you repeat the original question?
The original question was just to compare today's
back then
scene,
to now. Well, my story is super short. I graduated UT in 2014, started doing all the TESPA stuff back in 2011. So for me, I think the critical moment for my history was that when I was going into college, social media was finally becoming established, and what was important about that was it wasn't just forum level communication between developers and organizers and the community. It was this live feedback loop where anything could happen in a minute and build something up or tear it down instantaneously. And what that emphasized for me was the importance of community management, building relationships, always maintaining a presence, things like that, which I think back when things were very grassroots, it was just, every event was in its own little ecosystem, it just happened, and you kind of met people when you did, or you played with them online in your own little bubbles. But everybody's connected now. And I think that I am not that old, but it's still amazing to me how much more connected people who are younger than I are via social media and all these different platforms and things like Twitch, right? Twitch started when I was really in college, and so it was just like, or Justin TV was when I was in high school, and then Twitch. So, anyways, those are the biggest changes for me, because like those things were new, now they're established, and people have grown up and lived through them. So what does that mean for the future? I still don't know, personally.
Actually, the other biggest thing, because you bring up, is in terms of what was it in here and what was it now. And I mentioned gating, and what I mean by that is almost like amateur leagues need to, but you couldn't just go to an event and compete and try to qualify and then get into a championship bracket, right? That's kind of how it was. There were cert spots held by pros, and pro teams invited people, but it would be hundreds of other, 100 teams, whatever, 80 teams that would go there, pay their own way, and try to make it into the championship bracket. So there was opportunity, I guess you can say. Now you gotta go through a million different ways to get in.
Yeah, and I feel like that's like a common thing happening in other countries. Like in Korea, I've heard of like the amateur scene being fed more easily into the professional scene for League of Legends, and then also on Esteban's points of the like entire scenes and even the developers themselves, and getting to better understand like who is playing the games that they're interested in, and also being involved with TESPA, that every single college has a so right at the